Terrell here, and this time we're back with another review. This time for Freddie Mercury, The Final Act. If you guys are not familiar, this is dealing with the story of the final chapter of Freddie Mercury and his life, and dealing with AIDS and how his bandmates pretty much staged like the biggest concert of all time, and I think it's been top since. And just kind of dealing with a lot of the prejudices and the stuff that was around AIDS at the time. Definitely got to say, going into this, I really didn't know what this was. I thought this was going to be like a kind of like a reenactment of like that last thing. I didn't realize it was going to be a documentary, and that it would deal with such heavy topics around the time, especially after you said you just seen was it Bohemian Rhapsody, and Bohemian Rhapsody pretty much focuses on Freddie Mercury's life, but really from the standpoint of like around his musical career. And as you watch that movie, they really kind of like avoid the topic a lot. Like a lot of the topics, like they kind of avoid his a lot of the sexuality, and just the whole AIDS stuff in general. And I'm not sure if that was just like a conscious choice in the movie to do that, but this documentary does hit a lot of the topics around like AIDS and HIV and what was going on. And like I said, this is really just deals with like a lot of Freddie Mercury and like the last days of his life, and how he chose to deal with AIDS. A lot of this too, of course, is a lot of the awareness for AIDS in the 90s. And this documentary brings out a lot of like, there just was like little to no information at that time. You know what I mean? Like at that point where there really was no medicine, like no real cure in sight. And for a lot of people that had this, there was just no hope. You know what I mean? Like, that they were going to get better, because like they said, there was just no real information on it at that time, in the early, like late 80s, early 90s. And like I said, like a lot of this too, this documentary deals with like some of the origins of AIDS, and a lot of doctors like getting on this documentary and just kind of reporting on it early on about what it was and how to deal with it. And a lot of people just freaked out about not knowing exactly what it was that they were dealing with. And of course, like I said, you deal with a lot of people dealing with, thinking that, AIDS and HIV only originated in like, the gay community, which is, they found out to be true like years later on. And of course, now we're at a point now where, you can live a full life now with, with these viruses. And as long as you take your medicine, you live your life now. But, this is kind of like, had Freddie had a few more years, had he had seeked out help a little bit, sooner, maybe he would, kind of still be here. But you see a lot of him dealing with this and kind of really trying to play it off, almost wanting to ignore it. And his bandmates, Brian and the rest of the crew, kind of keeping his secret, because at some point they did know what was going on with Freddie, in the documentary. But they say, of course, that's his business. That's something that he wanted to deal with. They talk about Brock Hudson, which was one of Freddie's friends who had died. And like I said, you definitely get way more of the story outside of like, what, Bohemian Rhapsody gave you, just a little bit more of like the controversy and how Freddie dealing with the rumors, even though they were true, but, him having to deal with it in his own way. And in one of the interviews in the documentary, he says like, pretty much like because of, the AIDS and HIV thing, he just pretty much became afraid to even have sex at that point. Like he says that, he felt like he was a nun, because like the fear of it, the fear of it, just dealing with it, and, spending the majority of his career being such a free spirit, and, feeling like sex was like a big part of his life, to now it not being pretty much anything, just, just the fear of death and dealing with that, the virus, and just dealing with that just pretty much killed everything for that. I like, it's a lot of, they show a lot of Freddie having to face the virus at some point. And, a lot of the friends, his closest friends, of course, that are around him, knowing and kind of helping him in his last days. And they show him pretty much like he, knowing that he had this, like just continuing to work, which is crazy, like just continuing to work. And even, during his last days, like, everybody's just like kind of try to play it off. They can kind of see it, as they say, they say it in this, like they can see it in his face. They can see it like on the skin, just kind of some of the signs of having it at that time. And just like this guy just still making a whole album in the studio, knowing his days were kind of numbered. Also dealing, like I said, a lot of the witch hunts in the gay community to, try to single them out and point them out to be, the source of the virus and everything like that. And it also kind of touches on, like George Michael kind of dealing with his situation at the time, and him wanting to come out, and them talking about George Michael being like a big sex symbol at that time, and they didn't want to complicate things by announcing that he was gay. Like they feel like that would have hurt his career. But he talks about that a lot. George Michael's like a big part of that, and like I said, he definitely has a big role in this. And some of the obscure treatments that, of course, like I said, they didn't really have a lot to go on with like AIDS and HIV at the time. So some of the obscure treatments that Freddie was using to kind of maintain himself, you know what I mean? Like, they were saying he had to like drain his eyes and certain things that they would do just to keep him going, to the point where, like, of course, he couldn't keep it going anymore, where he was just like, look, this is it for me. And then, of course, it's real sad in the documentary too, because I feel like it's really close. You can definitely feel like the emotion from friends and family, and they have his sister and friends and Brian and the rest of the crew in this, and just giving real heartfelt documentaries. And you could tell that they were more than just bandmates. They were definitely family. They were brothers, whatever they call it. It was more than just a business situation. And they were close to, what I mean? Like, so you can definitely tell they cared about Freddie, like he was actual family. So when Freddie did die, of course, we all know about the infamous concert that they put on where they had almost every popular singer that existed, rock group Guns N' Roses, Annie Lennox, who was it? Elton John, like almost anybody you could think of to perform at the most famous concert of the early 90s, to tribute to, of course, AIDS awareness, but of course give tribute to Freddie Mercury, and kind of like signal to like the band's retirement too, because pretty much after Freddie was gone, like that, the band was done. But we see, like, of course he died at the age of 45 after dealing with that for so long, and pretty much holding on and still continuing his career. But that's crazy. Like I said, you will never see another concert like that ever again. Like, as one of those things, like this documentary kind of hits on too. Like, I feel like we've had concerts now where, like, you get a bunch of performances like that, but just like those legendary artists at that time, you will never get another concert like that again. But this film does respectfully do, and documentary does respectfully do a good job of covering a lot of the awareness of AIDS at the time, and a lot of the prejudice and stuff that people were against gay people, and even people that had the disease. Because at that point, like I said, it was just mainly, men that were getting it and stuff like that. But of course, as we know now, how it spread and how you could pretty much handle it, better than they could then. But, Freddie pretty much kicked off, the spark to handle that a little bit better. But like I said, I mean, of course, being a Queen fan myself, this watching this was, it'll definitely get you a little choked up. So, like I said, this is really good documentary. I definitely recommend watching this. Definitely, if you want to know more about Freddie and how he lived his life and how he dealt with it. Like I said, this is the final act. This is in his last days, and just seeing him continue to work, even though he was in pain from the disease, from the virus, and continuing on. I mean, can't get any better than that. Like Freddie Mercury was just a man in this. But I do recommend this. I believe this is supposed to be on the CW if this airs. Supposed to drop sometime soon. But I definitely recommend this. This covers a lot, like I said, about AIDS awareness, a lot of, the in-between of Queen, like the stuff that you don't get to see in Bohemian Rhapsody. Even, like I said, I mean, that's a biopic, so they're gonna choose the best parts and, stuff like that. But towards those last days, you definitely get to see, like Freddie Mercury shine, I think, even brighter than he was before. Just because, like, he wanted to give everything he had until he ended, because he says in this, like, if he can't sing, then that would feel like dying to him, and that would be it for him. If he couldn't continue to sing anymore, that would be it for him. That would feel like dying. And that's one of the parts that really got me in the movie. But they did like I said again, they did a good job. Respectfully, I do recommend watching this. This should be airing sometime soon. And this has been, of course, my review for Freddie Mercury, the final act. Please check this out. See you.